Hello everybody and welcome back to the STEAM train. This is the 11 a.m. lesson for kids in K to 2nd grade. Today we have something super awesome. I'm Mr. Doran with New Minds, and today we're learning about sound, music, and how all of those things are made. The main thing you want to know about sound is that it all comes from one thing, and that's called vibration. You've probably done this before where you got all silly one day, you start shaking around like and you made a bunch of noise and it was a whole thing, but all that came from vibration and moving around. When something vibrates, that means it's able to make a sound. We're going to tell all sorts of different instruments and how they make their own way to vibrate, but we're going to start with the first one I played. This is a kazoo. It's a really easy instrument that turns your voice into sound. All it is one hollow tube. Hollow just means there's nothing inside of it. And the second thing is it has a little piece of plastic that vibrates in this little hole. So when I talk into it, it's going to go through and it's going to vibrate and then it's going to come out the other side. So I can say something like, "Hi, how are you?" into the kazoo. And it's going to sound like music. This is a really cool and really simple instrument, but there's a lot of really complicated instruments that use the same thing. If I want something like a string to vibrate, this is just a toy bow and arrow I have, but it actually does make its own sound. This string is stretched really, really tight, and it's going to make a really low noise. I'll do it one more time in case you guys couldn't hear it the first time. And the whole reason that this happens is because this string can vibrate. If I hold the string still so it won't move and try to make noise, nothing's going to happen. But because nothing is touching the string except the two ends, and I can flick it, and if you look really close, you can actually see it vibrate. So that's how sound is made. String instruments are really cool because you can make bigger or smaller strings and give different noises. And across almost every instrument, the longer it is, the lower it's going to be. And the shorter it is, the higher it's going to be. So this is a really long and low noise because it goes almost all the way across the camera. But if I have a really tiny guitar, like this one, it's going to make a really high noise. Makes a really high pitch. But not all instruments have strings. There's instruments that use all sorts of different vibrations. This one uses a little piece of plastic. This one uses strings. We're going to do another one that actually uses wind. Wind is super cool because it's going to vibrate on its own, but it needs somewhere to escape. The longer it takes to escape, the lower noise it's going to have. So I can have something like one of these little flutes. All it is a bunch of tubes with holes in the bottom. I'm going to blow my air in the top. It's going to go all the way down, and it's going to go down each and every tube. If I blow in a shorter one, it's going to make a higher noise. But if I blow in a longer one, it's going to make a lower noise. And all the different lengths go in between. You can kind of see, it looks like a big step of stairs. So if I want to go from low to high, or it can go from high to low. You may have some instruments at your house and you may be able to play them, but I want you to save that to the very end because we're going to do some cool stuff with them. Make sure always before you play an instrument, they do make sound. And with sound, you want to be careful. You don't want to cover up somebody who's doing something important, like taking a business phone call or things like that. So make sure to ask if it's okay if I play some music, and then you'll be able to have some time and play your instruments. A really cool way you can see your instrument getting made longer is with this really awesome instrument called a trombone. This is actually a really, really long instrument. It's almost as tall as me if I stretched all the way out. But this is super awesome because there's no buttons, there's no levers. It's just one really long slide. And if I open it, it's going to get longer and longer and longer. You see that? It gets really, really long. It's actually 7 feet long if you pull it all the way out. Or I can make it really short. The tube is just one really long tube. It goes all the way up. It wraps all the way around and goes back down. And then it goes all the way back up out of this horn in, and that's where all the sound comes from. The cool thing is that this actually takes the vibration from your lips. So if you've ever done this before and made a horse noise, that means you could play a trombone. All you do is you make that same noise into this mouthpiece. It's going to take your vibration from this big hole that's going to fit your mouth. It's going to turn it into a really small vibration. So if I make the noise into here, it's going to make a noise. Now this doesn't sound like an instrument yet. It just sounds like a weird buzzer, like your timer has gone off and it's telling you to get your phone. But if I put it into this instrument, it's going to turn this vibration, or what we in music call a buzz, into a sound. Now what I'm going to do is, as I'm playing, I'm going to make it longer, and you'll see it get closer to you, and shorter. And you can pay attention to what happens to the sound. So as I make my instrument longer and longer and longer, the air is going to be trapped in there for longer, and it's going to vibrate more and more. So it's going to make a lower noise. Something really cool is you can use this to make race car noises. This is what I used to do all the time when I was messing around in music class. You can do a lot of cool stuff just with vibration. I'm going to put this away for now. But there's all sorts of different instruments that don't use slides. If I was going to go get my trumpet, it's kind of far away right now. It's in a hard to get spot. But all it would have is different valves. And when you push them, it's going to change the sound of the instrument. It's going to send the air in a different direction. It might go in a really long tube. Or if I push another valve, it'll make it go in a really short tube. All of these are just using vibration. The same way my voice makes a kazoo make noise. Or a string makes noise. In the same way that stick instruments or percussion instruments make noise. They're going to take something that's really solid, or maybe that could be really loose, and stretch it really, really tight. So that way it has to be stuck in a certain shape, the same way we stretch this string. And then it'll vibrate when you hit it, like a drum. I don't have any drums with me today, but I do have a xylophone. Xylophones are super cool because all they are is they're little pieces of metal. You'll notice that they're only held on in two spots. There's big, almost looking like train tracks behind them, and there's two spots that hold them on. If it held the whole piece together, it wouldn't vibrate because I'd be holding it still. I'm going to get a special stick to hit this, but you'll look and you'll see the same thing as this instrument. There's bigger ones and there's smaller ones. They just flip a different direction. The smaller ones are going to make higher noises, and the bigger ones are going to make lower noises. So I'm going to get my special stick for the xylophone, because you want to be careful with real instruments. They have special ways to play them. And I'm going to hit a really tiny one, and I'm going to hit a really big one. And you can hear the two different pitches. You'll notice the tiny ones, they have a really fast vibration, so they actually stop vibrating really quickly. The bigger ones have a really slow vibration, so they're going to vibrate for much longer. I'm going to hit them both at the same time. I'm just going to flick them, and you'll see which one lasts longer. Let me do it a little bit better. This one stops almost immediately, and this one keeps ringing for 2 or 3 seconds. I'll hit it one more time so you can hear it. All of this is because of vibration. The music is actually made of something that's called waves. Sound has its own waves, and it kind of makes a squiggle like this. There's actually 2 of them that cross each other at the same time. So if something is really fast, it's going to squiggle really quickly, really quickly, really quickly, and then fall off. But if it's really slow, it's going to go woo and vibrate really big. And that's all you need to know about music And you can play this as all sorts of different things. I have one more instrument I'm going to show you, and then we're going to be able to make our own instruments. The last one I want to show you is recording. Some of you guys might have played this instrument before, or you might play it very soon, but it's going to use the same thing, except it has a bunch of holes. If we want our our wind and vibration to get a little longer, we're going to have to cover more holes so it gets further down before it comes out, and we'll make a lower note. If we cover less holes, it's going to be a much higher note. Hello, Hanson's little brother. I'm sure you have a name if you'd like to tell me. All I'm going to do is I'm going to cover all of these holes, and it's going to make a very low noise. But if I don't cover very many, if I just hold the top one, it's going to make a much higher noise. And this is pretty cool because it has something called a reed. A reed is a special hole that makes the wind vibrate for you. So all I have to do is blow into it with any sort of air. So this does a lot of the work for me. It actually does so much work for me, I could even play this with my nose. Are you ready? And that's super cool because this does a lot of work for me. I'm not going to play this anymore because now I need to clean it. I just put my nose on it. But it is super cool that instruments, they help you just turn your wind and your voice into vibrations and into awesome sounds. And if you've ever been to an orchestra or a symphony, you see there's all sorts of different types of instruments. There's hundreds and hundreds of instruments, and they all make their own unique noises. The really cool thing is when you put them all together, you get unique sounds that you've never heard before. When you combine a violin with the trumpet, or you combine a French horn with the viola, or you combine a big drum or a steel drum, and all of them make their own noise just by testing out different vibrations. Some things in your house might accidentally turn into musical instruments. Maybe you have a chair that squeaks because it vibrates, or all sorts of different things. You push a chair across the floor, it's going to rub a bunch and vibrate a lot. All of those things are going to make sound. The thing we're going to do next is I'm going to show you how to make your own instrument. There's a couple different ways you can do this. One way you can do it is using very small beads. These are going to vibrate in the same way. All you need is some space and some stuff. When the stuff moves around, it's going to bounce around the container and make noise. I'm going to take these and make a smaller instrument because this is kind of big, but if I shake it, it makes noise because it has room to move. If I had everything stuck together and it was completely full all the way to the top, it wouldn't make any noise because they don't have room to vibrate. It's almost like if you had a building packed full of people and everyone was stuck together, nobody would move because they don't have room to move. So I'm going to show you two different ways you can make a sort of shaker instrument like a maraca. The first one is you can use something really easy like an old Easter egg. This is kind of a cool one. It opens sideways and it's green and black. This is the first one I found. You can do this with the regular Easter egg too. All I'm going to do is take this Easter egg and fill it halfway up with beads and halfway up for air. I want to be careful not to spill these beads because they do get everywhere. And then I'm going to tape it closed so there's no accidents and it doesn't spill anywhere. And if it does spill, just make sure to pick it up after yourself. And then I'm going to tape it closed and then we're going to see how our instrument sounds. You don't have to use beads. You can use Legos for this too, and I'll show you a second example after I finish this. First, I'm just going to take a little bit of beads. I'm going to carefully put them in there. It looks like I spilled some, so before I do anything else, I'm going to pick them up and put them away. And now I have my egg. It is half filled and half empty. So I'm going to close it. The reason I don't fill both sides is I need room to vibrate, just like everything else. Now when I shake it, I have a maraca. If I take a little bit more out, it's going to make a little bit less noise because they have more room to move, but there's less of them hitting together. I'm going to show you a Lego way you can do the same thing if you don't have Easter eggs or beads laying around. They don't have to be beads. They could be stuff like macaroni or tiny pieces of pasta that you broke up. Just make sure you ask before you use anything in the kitchen. I'm going to show you another way using some Legos. I already have my pieces pulled out, but all I'm going to do is make a Lego box and then put some Lego studs in there. If you don't know what Lego studs are, they're just these little circle pieces. I put mine in a bag so don't spill them everywhere. But I'm going to show you how to make a Lego version. I'm just going to take a big flat piece. I'm going to build up a nice box. I want to make sure there's no holes in my box. If there's a hole in my box, all my pieces are going to escape and get out, and then it's just going to turn into almost like a messy salt shaker. There we go. Now I have a little box. It's just a little hole. It's all made of white pieces. I'm going to put some Legos in. Remember, if I fill it all the way to the top, they won't have room to move. So I'm going to do that just so you can see the difference. If I fill it all the way to the top so it's overflowing, and I try and shake it, it doesn't make very much noise. They don't have room to move. But if I just fill it up like halfway, and then put the lid on it, it's going to shake much louder. That's two ways you can do it, and if you don't have Legos or Easter eggs, you can find small Tupperware containers. I could have used this container and filled it up with beads. It's the one I just put all my pieces in. All of these things might work, and you can just experiment and see how different vibrations are made. One of the coolest ways you can actually make vibrations is using a speaker. Speakers are super cool because they don't take things like wind or air. They actually just take electronic signals or a current. They go into the speaker, and it has a big disc. If you've ever looked really close to the speaker, it just vibrates and makes a lot of noise, and it shoots all the air out. We can talk more about electric currents and things like that and how speakers will work in a different lesson. But that's all I have for you guys today in the Steam Train, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. And go ahead and make some music. Just make sure to ask first. Have a great day, and see you guys later.